Hi beautiful people, welcome back to my channel, all series videos. Thank you so much for the likes, the comments, and for subscribing. Thank you for always coming back to my channel and viewing my updates. It encourages me to post more. Thank you so much. Guess what? I'll be updating you on Twist of Fate. But the main thing is that what will happen in this update will shock you. Rhea and Mihika's madness came to light. Who do you think will win? Let's go. Rhea comes to the party hall and beats spoon on the plate. Everyone thinks that she is up to something. Dida and Shahana gets worried. Akshay thinks what she is going to do, as she still loves Rambia. Rhea says, I didn't get the attention which I deserve. She says, this thing is very important for me, and says, you don't want to miss this. All eyes shall be on me. She asks, who thinks among you all that I am not beautiful and pretty? Everyone is surprised. Rhea says, everyone is silent. That means I am beautiful and pretty. She says, I am also very educated. I am a graduate and handles house well and cooks food also. She says she can handle business also. She is beauty with brains, but her heart was broken. She then says she is Mrs. Pallavi Vikram Kohli. My mother-in-law, this girl Prachi, is the reason for my sorrows. Don't know why. And the girl Shahana with her has taken my place in Prachi's heart. And Prachi loves her and doesn't love me at all. She says Vikram is my Sosoji and does whatever my sass wants or says. Prachi says, enough, Rhea, and asks, what nonsense are you saying? She says you can't misguide anyone by calling anyone as her in-laws, and asks her to go to side and talk and not to misguide others. Rhea says, did you all see how she's talking? And says she loves Shahana and not me. If my sister was good, then my life would have been good. She says, I am crazily in love with Rambia. But this Prachi don't see my life, and she doesn't think me suitable for Rambia. And says she has trapped Rambia and has manipulated him. She says Rambia doesn't know what he wants. Rambia says, enough, Rhea. Stop it. Rhea asks, did you feel bad? And says, I didn't talk about it. She tells Mihika that Rambia doesn't love you and asks her not to be in the misunderstanding that he will marry you, and asks her to leave him and not live humiliated life. She says, leave my Rambia because I love Rambia. The episode starts with Rhea asking Mihika to leave her Rambia as she loves him. Vishaka asks Rambia if this girl is saying the truth and asks if you were married to her before. She shouts, asking him to say. Rambia says no. Rhea says no. Marriage haven't happened, but it will happen, and asks Vishaka to take Mihika with her and says, I will not let Rambia become of someone else. He is mine. She takes the knife and threatens to cut her wrist. Rambia says, I have seen this nonsense before also, and asks her to not do it here. Rhea asks Mihika to leave Rambia, else. Mihika asks, else what? Will you die? She asks her to die and says, I really don't care. Vishaka runs to Rhea, takes knives from her hand and slaps her hard. She says, if your parents had done this, then I wouldn't have slapped you. She asks her to leave from there and holds her hand to throw her out. Prachi shouts, asking Vishaka to stop, and says, Rhea is my sister, and this way she is the guest of this house. She says she is younger and innocent and doesn't know what to say and how to talk, and apologizes to Vishaka, asking her to not throw her out. Vishaka asks what to do. Shall we keep her on the bed and do her arty? She says Mihika is your husband's sister, whose engagement is stopped now. Prachi says, I know well, and says Rhea is my sister, and says if you throw her out, then. Vishaka says, her karma is such she needs to be thrown out. Manpreet takes Prachi's side and says she just wants us to be good with her sister. She says Prachi is feeling bad as Rhea is her sister. She says even we feel the same for our siblings and asks her not to take the things on her heart and end this matter right here. Vishaka tells her shock that Manpreet is insulting me and says your Bagu got upset and then your wife as I slapped Rhea. Ashok says it is not like that. You are taking it wrongly. She says both Prachi and Manpreet are right in their own ways. Vishaka says I have understood and tells Prachi that because of her Babi and Bai insulted her. She says I did a mistake by regarding this house as mine and asks Divya to take their stuff and says we will leave now. Akshay says we love and respect you a lot and asks her to calm down and says nobody will insult you. Vishaka says if I shall calm down so that your wife hits shoes on me. She asks him to teach Prachi how to talk to elders. Rhea claps and says this is what my sister does and says the one and only Prachi. She tells Ashok that you might feel that she is helpless and tells Pallavi that you might be thinking her as good values girl. She tells Mihika that Prachi might make you feel that you are more dear to her than her sister and says Prachi is like this. Wherever she goes, she makes the family members fight and says she did the same in my family too. She says Rambia used to regard her as honest and good girl and my Sasoji used to regard her as good values girl as she used to act with them and even my Sasuma used to think her good. But later she came to know about her truth. She says Dida loved her truly and blindly like Manpreet's auntie and says Prachi manipulates everyone like a Devi and asks where is your feet? I want to touch your feet. Prachi asks what is this madness? Get up. Rhea says I have become mad because of you and says everywhere people praises just Prachi and I feel that blood came out of my ears. She says only Bauji has identified Prachi and claps for her. She says now coming to the matter, I want Rambia and Mihika's marriage to be cancelled as I love him and he will go with me. Rambia says don't think of this and says I will not go anywhere with you. She asks Rambia if I am not beautiful and asks if Prachi is more beautiful than me and asks him to say what is in her and says Prachi is nothing in front of me. Rambia asks her to shut up and says I have seen your many dramas and says you don't deserve to stay here. Your thoughts are cheap. Prachi asks Rambia not to do this. Rambia says we all have to fight because of your love. He drags Rhea out. Prachi tries to go behind them and falls down. Akshay comes to Prachi. Rambia takes Rhea outside. Rhea asks him to hold her hand and asks him to come with her. She says, I love you. He says, I don't love you. And says, I don't want to see you. You are not a good person. And says, you are selfish and haven't loved anyone. Rhea says, I just loved you and has done so much for you and your family and has sacrificed all my golden years for you. And you are calling me selfish. And says, you don't understand my love. Prachi comes there. Rhea says, Davy G has come. And says first she does drama and then see it and tells that this is happening because of her and says you made my life as cause and has become my life's eclipse and asks why were you born and says you should have died before birth. Rambia asks her to shut up and asks why are you involving Prachi in this and says if Prachi is eclipse then what are you? He says Prachi is married to Akshay and I am marrying Mihika. Then from where Prachi came between us? Rhea says Prachi is inauspicious and has snatched everything from me. She has snatched my man, my dad. I was his favorite. Prachi asks, what are you saying? Rambia says she's cursing you and you are having tears in your eyes. He tells Rhea that if you have stayed with your father, then Prachi stayed with her mother and says you are eclipse for Prachi if she is eclipse for you. Prachi asks Rambia, what are you saying? Rhea asks if you love me, then why didn't you leave Rambia for me? Rambia says, you don't deserve love. You are mad. Rhea says, I deserve you and has rights on you. Mihika comes there and says, now you have no rights on him as he is my would-be husband. She says, I am not liking whatever you are saying. So I suggest that you should shut up and not say anything. She hugs Rambia. Prachi and Rhea both get upset. Rhea pushes Mihika and says, you don't. She tells Rambia, I love you the most. Rambia holds Mihika's hand and then looks at Prachi. Rhea says, it is better that you shall kill me, and asks him to suffocate her neck. She says, if you don't do this, then I am telling you that I will return again in your life and will ruin your life. She says, this is my promise. Prachi and Rambia stand shocked. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and come back for more updates from your favorite Z Word series.